Hello and welcome to the program. This is Minority Opinions Podcast, hosted by me, Hito, from Japan, and Ricardo, who is a friend of mine. Today, we are going to be talking about a couple of films. We both saw a few new releases separately, but our main topic of the day is going to be on El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, which is now available on Netflix. But first, let me talk about a couple of films that I saw here in Japan. One of them is John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, which I know came out earlier this year in most major markets, but it just opened in Japan 2 weeks ago, so now I'm talking about it. So this is the third film in the franchise, John Wick franchise. It picks up right after the events of Chapter 2. John is excommunicado, and now every assassin in New York City is trying to kill him. I saw it twice, and I really enjoyed it. Actually, that's an understatement. I loved it.
You were raving about it when you texted to me, like, the day you saw it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is by far my favorite blockbuster of the year. This is the best action movie of 2019. Sorry, Hobson Shaw. You are great, but not as great as Keanu beating the shit out of people. I mean, if you love this franchise, you already love it anyways. And, oh man, the body counts is insane. Things he does with horses and bikes and knives. It's just, the entire movie is awesome. If you're an action junkie, you will love this. I had the best time. I had a smile on my face, which is I guess it's a strange thing to say because it's essentially about a movie about a guy killing a bunch of people, but I don't care. It's more entertaining than Joker. But yeah, the movie is great. I enjoyed it. I loved it. And I hope they will wrap up the franchise in 2 more movies. I think the next one is going to be crazy. It's going to be an all-out war. And I just love Keanu. I love Keanu. So he's great, and I love him. Also out in cinemas here is Yesterday.
Oh, okay. I never got a chance to watch that, actually.
This is the new Danny Boyle movie, written by Richard Curtis, who, of course, wrote a lot of rom-coms from the 90s and early 2000s. The most famous ones are Four Weddings and a Funeral, and Notting Hill, and Love Actually, which he also directed. And this is the Beatles movie. Not a movie about the Beatles, but a movie that uses their songs. Mm-hmm. So the basic plot is a global blackout happens, and a young musician gets hit by a bus, and the next thing he knows, he is the only person in the entire world who remembers the Beatles. So he starts making money off of their songs as his own creation. And this movie is so charming. It's really heartwarming. I really enjoyed it. I really needed this. I get depressed very often, and this movie was sort of the antidote to that. It just makes you feel so happy, and it's a very uplifting film, and it's just, you can't help but smiling pretty much all the way through. And if you love the Beatles as much as I do, you will love this movie, or at least have a good time watching it. Himesh Patel, the protagonist, is great. He's very charming. He's likable. Lily James just lights up every scene she's in. Ed Sheeran pops up as himself, and he's kind of good. He's kind of good. I was just beaming. I was just really happy. I was happy to be in this bubble, this like a bubble bath of a movie.
The bubble bath of a movie. That's a pretty good metaphor.
It's a complete fantasy. It's a 2-hour-long fantasy in which everyone is kind to each other, and the power of music and how that changes people's lives, and it's just a really, really nice film. Yeah, there are a couple of jokes. So when the blackout happens, and the Beatles just get, um,
Forgotten.
yeah, forgotten. Like there's a scene in the beginning of the movie. This is not a spoiler. The protagonist goes on the internet to search the Beatles, and all that he finds is beetles, as in like insect.
I was in the trailer and I was like, okay, that's a funny joke. That's a funny joke.
Yeah, and he types like, okay, does the Rolling Stones exist? And it pops up. Oh, okay, good, they still exist. What about Oasis? Oasis doesn't exist. Oh, okay, Oasis doesn't exist. And there are a couple of jokes like that where sort of the disappearance of the Beatles influences this world.
Mm-hmm.
I was concerned going in because, I mean, Rotten Tomatoes is a ridiculous concept, anyways, but it only had like 63%. And I heard people complaining, this is too schmaltzy and not as good as some people think it is, but I think it's pretty great. If you want to smile, if you want to be in this bubble bath of a movie for 2 hours, you will have a good time. It's a really good movie. I think you will like it. I think most people should like it. Richard Curtis is a romantic. He's an optimist. And every film he writes is optimistic and touching and sometimes sentimental. And I am a really harsh critic when it comes to his movies. I'm not a big fan of Love Actually, but a lot of people love it. So that's fine. But this one really worked for me. So yeah, I'm going way too long on this. So both John Wick 3 and Yesterday, really good. Really enjoyed it.
Oh,
So
thank you, Hiro.
yeah, so let me very quickly talk about this movie called The Laundromat, which is now available on Netflix. So if you have a Netflix account, you can watch it anywhere in the world, which is how I saw it. This is the new film by Steven Soderbergh, who just had a new movie earlier this year.
That madman.
Yeah, called High Flying Bird, which is also available on Netflix, and that movie is fantastic. You should go see it. This one, not so much, even though it has Meryl Streep, Gary Oldman, Antonio Banderas, and so many other A-list actors. This is a story about the Panama Papers scandals, which I knew nothing about, and it's about how these lawyers played by Oldman and Banderas basically made money by screwing working class people over. And it's a story about money and power and wealth and how people are shitty. And
Let me ask you something about this movie. Is it because it sounds very similar to The Big Short, right? Is it as charming in a bit? Because that movie by itself was kind of strange because the protagonists were these people who were actually screwing over the working class people, and it was a strange narrative where like we're rooting for the wrong people, but we like that they have a goal. Is this similar or is it a bit different?
no, it's different. I mean, the style is similar in that both Oldman and Banderas characters talk to the camera, breaking the fourth wall. The Big Short was easier to understand as to what is happening and how the stock market is working and all the, debts and whatever housing market stuff and how the money flows was, told with Adam McKay did this brilliant thing by having Margot Robbie and Anthony Bourdain to explain the very complicated concepts. Whereas this one is just, this one, we have these two characters explaining, we want to explain our side of this story because media only focused on this narrative that we are bad guys. And it's like, yeah, okay, but you guys are frauds. You deceived people and made so much money off of it. So I don't feel sympathy for you. There's Meryl Streep and there's a stuff with her character that feels really, it doesn't get resolved in a satisfactory way. The writer Scott Z. Burns, who is a frequent collaborator of Soderbergh's, puts a lot of side storylines and heavy exposition, like really confusing exposition. I heard some people saying, well, they really dumbed it down for, normal people to understand, but I didn't. I wanted more from it. I end up feeling like I feel like I got like a crash course of this scandal, but I never it never delved into how complex it was. Soderbergh knows how to make a movie, and he knows how to assemble a movie and make things look sleek and pretty. But yeah, I was disappointed.
Well, thank you for your review, but I think it's time to get spooky.
All right. I mean, it's the Halloween season, so yeah.
We have a spooky episode today, and I had to top it off with a little indie movie called The Lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you've been aware of this movie for a while. It's a film directed by the Witch director Robert Eggers, and this film was written by him and his brother Max Eggers. So they come once again, to make this little darling of a horror film starring Robert Pattinson and William Dafoe. I'm gonna tell you something, Hito. This movie, I think, this is apex filmmaking. I found this movie so brilliantly well made and terrifying that I think it might be one of my favorites of the year so far. It's around 2 hours, yet the entire film's energy is led by Pattinson and Dafoe, because the first scene, like they're arriving to the lighthouse, you just feel the energy and characters feel alive within the two, and when they bicker and they argue and they joke about certain topics, you could just you could imagine like, oh, these two have known each other for like years, or like they're actually like really father and son relationship type.
Mm-hmm.
And this film, it's very simple. It has resemblances of like Zhao, which is like it's a Latin American Danish film, or it has like vibes of like a magical realist film, but like American mythology wise.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's vague enough to keep mysterious, but specific enough to be interpretative.
Okay.
And I think you'll love this film, honestly. There are so many one-liners and so many crazy ass moments where it will scar your eyes, and Eggers knows how to make a scene. He knows how to get the composition of a scene, frame it in a certain way where it just violates the viewer's eyes, and it's like, okay, I like that shit.
Violates. Ooh.
And it's shot, I think it was like 1:31 ratio, so it's like very boxed in. So the entire film, it's like one of those old tellies, like cranking the not phonograph. What do they call it? Film projectors, like. So like it feels like you're actually there, kind of like Ghost Story. Like you feel more tight in the frame.
I heard it's like a square, even like more narrower than like usual 4x3.
Yeah, it's pretty narrow, and then like that, like I remember last year I gave all my love and praise to Cliff Martinez. What was it, Cliff Martinez? Wait, who was it? For If Beale Street Could Talk, who was the composer? Nicholas Britell. Yeah, I gave all my love and effort to that man, and I feel like this movie, the person who did the score, what's his name? Mark Corvin. His score for this film is so harrowing that I still think about it at night, because there's a constant theme of like I don't know if it's a ship or I'm not even sure it's diegetic in the film. It's like this like disturbingly echoey score that anytime something haunting occurs, at least what I think, that sound becomes existent, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? This is scary. Mm-hmm. And it just haunts you. The movie does a good job of making you feel like you're like scared and you're worried and tense. And then there's always a sense of like dread, like who can I trust to? Yet there's only two characters in the film, showing how disturbing it is. Like it does have traits of H.P. Lovecraft, which I do appreciate, because that is one of the hardest genres to adapt on the screen. Like cosmic horror, that is difficult. Mm-hmm. And this film, I feel like this film won't get that much viewings out of the country. I don't know I don't know if A24 is going to release any more like theaters for this film.
I'm sure it'll expand.
Because like I'm worried it might be like it comes at night where people expect a certain crazy ass like Kraken to come out, when really it's more like a personal, very character driven story. And I definitely recommend you, or else you're gonna be spilling your beans to me in David Jones' locker.
Okay. How is it compared to The Witch, or some people call it The Witch?
I kind of cringe when people say the witch because I'm like, okay, we get it, you can read, just call it the witch. We're adults.
Yeah.
I think in my personal opinion, I think the witch is more scary in terms of how the compositions and score matches the shot composition. Like, it's more terrifying in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Lighthouse is more ominous and intriguing. Because it does leave more questions open than answered, whereas The Witch has a lot more answers like given than, left alone.
Right.
Because I feel like people will feel satisfied watching The Witch, but then in Lighthouse, people might be, I would say, disappointed because it's not really direct on what it wants to say, but that's what makes it great because it keeps it very vague. So it makes you think, what does that represent? What's the point of this? Why did the person do that? What's their motivation? It's like a whodunit, but like a very spooky whodunit.
Okay. So it's not exactly a horror.
It's not exactly a horror entirely, but there are DNA traits of like The Shining, H.P. Lovecraft. There is a lot of thematic beats that are similar from The Witch, but it's weird because Eggers somehow finds this mythology because he's very intrigued by American mythology. Because I read this film took place near New England, and a lot of the culture in it is based off of New England fisherman culture, whereas The Witch can't take place in where was it? I think it was also New England.
Yeah, I think it was.
So like a lot of like the 13 colonies mythology, like East Coast. Like I don't know that much about it, but it's like strictly like American mythology. Like when I say American, I meant like original America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and it takes place in like 1879. So the time frame makes sense as well.
Okay.
And the imagery is so beautiful too. Like there's a poster that has a seagull on it, and I was like, that's a beautiful poster.
Does it play a significant part?
Yes.
Okay.
But I won't say why.
Yeah. Please don't.
But
I saw like an octopus in the trailer, like a tiny, like a split second of an octopus.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Does it lead to anything significant?
I have no idea. You may watch the movie and you'll find out.
God damn it.
Yeah, it's there. Every item in the film has a purpose, and I think Eggers knows what he's doing. No, he knows what he's doing with that imagery. So I will leave you on that.
All right then. Yeah, I want to see that movie. I've been hearing that Pattinson was kind of drunk in certain scenes. Like he doesn't remember filming some scenes apparently. So
you could tell which scenes they are because he doesn't go Nicolas Cage ham, but he goes Pattinson ham, where it's just it's scary seeing him be that way. Defoe, he's just terrifying and untrustworthy. To Pattinson, he's just a young hormone-filled monster in this film.
Okay.
And to the viewers, once they see the film, they'll get why I say that.
All right, hormone.
But overall, I think I'm gonna say this. I think I give this film like a perfect score.
Wow.
I think it's a very well made film, and maybe because of my bias. I love films about mythology and like tales and folklore. So that's my love for it. But that's why I gave it a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So check me out on Letterboxd. Shameless plug, but that's fine.
Yeah, A24 just keeps making and releasing great films.
And I keep buying their merchandise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem. I'm okay with that.
I'm sure you are.
Well, The Lighthouse is an original IP, and it was released in theaters. But the next movie we're going to talk about, it is an original IP, but it's a bit of an old one, and it was released on Netflix instead of in theaters. Let's
get into it. El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie.
It's a spin-off movie directed by Vince Gilligan, coming back from the TV show, and it has the same cast. Mainly, yeah, it has mainly the same cast. Well, yeah, it does have the main cast again.
Yeah,
and it's a prequel movie to the actual Breaking Bad series.
Not a prequel. It's an epilogue.
Epilogue. That's the perfect term for it.
Yeah.
All right.
So it picks up right after the events of the season. Well, how do you call it? It's not a season finale. It's a
series finale.
Yeah, series finale. Thank you.
All right, and I'm just gonna keep it. This is a strictly Breaking Bad's been over for like 6 or 7 years now. We get that. We get people. Oh, I haven't watched it. Okay, we can't talk about the movie unless you have seen the show. So if you are scared of spoilers or accidental slip ups, I would be careful. Tread with your own water. Tread with your own concern.
Right. So I guess without spoiling too much, this is a movie about Jesse Pinkman and what happened to him after the liberation that he got at the end of the show.
He escaped Nazis.
Yeah, he escaped Nazis, and Walter White killed Nazis with a big ass
M60.
What do you call it? Yeah, M60.
A military grade M60, where they're like, oh, we have no idea how he got this, and we're like, we know how he got it. Like,
yeah, like Ricardo said, if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, I think watching this movie would be a really confusing experience because it does not feed you information. This is a movie for the fans of the show.
Yeah, I don't know who else. Even when I started the movie, it was like recap of the entire Breaking Bad series. So that's made for us. That's not made for newcomers. Like if you're some regular Joe saying, "Oh, we won't watch Honey," it's like, "Oh, let's watch El Camino." It's like, "What is that?" "Oh, that's some Breaking Bad." No, stop! Don't do that.
Yeah.
Stop what you're doing. Just
But
go watch the show. Then watch Better Call Saul, and then watch this. You're good to go.
I mean, I haven't seen Better Call Saul, but I definitely got it.
That show is so terrific. Like Vince Gilligan, even though like it's so hard to expand a TV universe into movies and shows, but Gilligan is doing a splendid job at doing that. Like, because I was at Better Call Saul, I was like, oh no, it's gonna be a spin-off show. It's gonna be not that good. No, it's like Breaking Bad level good.
Okay. It's on my Netflix watch list, so I'll do that.
Do it. But I think with El Camino, we should probably ask first, like, after watching the film, did you feel like it was necessary to make it?
I mean, I'm glad that we got this movie. I wasn't itching for what happened to Jesse.
Yeah, I think.
Like, I felt like that was a perfect ending for me. Like, him leaving the, shit situation he was in El Camino and screaming, yeah! And that was liberating for me, and that was enough for me. That was perfect. That was a perfect ending for him.
Because he spent most of the season chained up and abused, and in this film it shows a lot of the in between spaces of what happened when he was living in the cage, and it's depressing. It's very depressing.
It is.
The way the film's set up is it's two parallels. It's the past storyline, and then it's a modern storyline. And as the film progresses, it shows you more and more of what happened until one part. It shows you from the very beginning, which I thought was heartwarming. And oh my god. I think this film is solid. I think it's a solid film. I just think it does have that. I still had that idea in the back of my head, does this need to be made? Do we have to see the story?
I didn't mind revisiting this world again. I didn't mind catching up with these people again. So, I mean, is it totally necessary? Not really. But I'm glad that I have this movie. It has some surprisingly bittersweet and moving moments. Breaking Bad has very little of that. That's a very dark and bleak show.
Very.
And yeah, but this movie has surprising amount of heart. It may have to do with the fact that this character has grown since the very first season, because if you look at him in the very first season, he's a really annoying
character,
drug dealer. Yeah,
he's an annoying, almost high school dropout drug dealer.
Not a likable character, no. But as the series went on, the character changed, and then
the second the movie starts and you see his current day form, he's a completely different person. He's brutalized, he's scarred by all the mistakes he's done. He just saw his best friend / father figure die. He's a changed man, and this movie is his runaway film. It's basically a road film / western. It's definitely a Western because of one certain segment in the film. A man on the road, and then he needs money. He's trying to get out. It's all called El Camino. He's being chased by the police in New Mexico. Pulls out a gun, like, and like, it's totally a Western. Yeah. It's totally a Western.
Okay. Now that you mentioned it, I can see why.
I think it does a good job. I think it feels like Breaking Bad, the DNA of it exists in the show. Like, the way it's shot, I remember in the show that they would use a lot of POV rigged shots where like they would rig it on the car and then the person would drive out, made it more intense. Like every film student in my school does that exact same trick. And we're like, oh, you watch Breaking Bad, I see. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that show still does it. There's a lot of interesting visual tricks they do with the film, and it's like, oh, like I want that Breaking Bad style. Like Vince Gilligan and his crew, they do such a good job at revisiting New Mexico, that piece of shit town they live in. But it's like it's great seeing it again.
Yeah, the first thing that really popped was how well shot this movie was.
Yeah.
Like the very first scene, I was like, oh my god, this is like a really beautiful like scene. Like, and both emotionally and visually. Like I couldn't remember, like Breaking Bad, I mean, although it's a great show, it's not exactly like known for well shot cinematography.
It was kind of grimy, and it had that VHS kind of like fuzziness to it.
Yeah, it's very dirty.
Yeah, I mean, I get why it's dirty, but like it was just dirty in general. But this one's like, it feels like Trainspotting 2 versus Trainspotting 1.
Yeah, yeah.
This one, like, I guess Jesse Pinkman, he's free, he's new, he's a new man now. So of course you're gonna shoot it clearly. But it was so weird seeing like the scenes like New Mexico and it's like Stinky Pete, Skinny Pete. That's Toy Story. Skinny Pete and Badger, like in HD, like you can see the pores and the beds are shot well. The lighting is so well done, and I'm like, I'm not used to this. But good for you guys. Like,
but we haven't mentioned Aaron Paul. He is really good.
He's really good. Like he still has that Jesse Pinkman in him, even if after all these years he's still Jesse Pinkman. There's no way of he's my Jesse Pinkman. This show, not show. I keep saying show. This film and Aaron Paul, like Vince Gilligan definitely knows how to direct his actors well. Because the authenticity within all the characters just feels real, and it feels well acted. And the script writing, Gilligan has always had a good eye for like script writing and character directing. And like there's so many intense scenes in this film where it feels like serious and tight and well made and so well done. Oh my god, Hito, what do you think?
I mean, I agree with you. It's really good. If you're a fan of the show, you will really like this. I mean, I can't imagine somebody who's a big fan of the show thinking, this sucked. It's like, really? But yeah, I wasn't itching for what happened to Jesse Pinkman, but I'm happy with what they did. I'm happy that, he has this little journey, both emotionally and physically. And I love the back and forth structure.
It works really well, I think, only for this particular scenario.
Yeah, and there's stuff from the past. There's a sequence where he's still in captivity. Yeah, he's still in captivity, and Meth Damon shows up.
Yes,
and they have a little adventure that I found was really interesting because Meth Damon was this really vicious character in the show.
Yeah, his looks do not compare to what he does.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse Plemons is fantastic, but oh my god, that character is evil.
Yeah,
but
and charming evil. He's just like, oh, you want chicken noodle soup? And I'm like, did you just not torture this man for like 10 hours straight with the hose?
Yeah.
Don't. What are you doing, man? Like.
Yeah, but you see a different side of him in this movie, which was really interesting. And if you're a fan of Jackie Brown, you will see Robert Forster once again. What's the word? Reprising as the disappearer. He popped up in the second to last episode, right?
Yeah, he was there for a bit. I haven't seen the show in years. I just realized that he was a guy who did the name changing stuff.
Yeah, so he's the guy who is famous for creating a new identity for runaways.
We miss you, Robert.
Yeah, rest in peace, Robert Forster. I got choked up a little bit when I saw him. It's like, oh my god, he was in this show.
Yeah, I saw him and I was like, damn, I loved him in Jackie Brown. He was such a tender man in Jackie Brown.
Yeah,
So
and
tender.
he just a great character actor for so many years, and yeah, if you're a fan of his, like we are, you will definitely get a little emotional. But yeah, I really liked this movie. I thought it was really great.
You know, the more I talk about it, the more I think I liked it. Because when I first came in, I was like, it was okay. Like, we didn't really need it. Now we talk about it more, I'm just like, you know what? I like it more. I like it.
But the ending is really nice.
Oh my god, that ending. That ending was so...
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude. That was... Because it has the... Oh.
We'll bleep that out.
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
We can't spoil it. We can't spoil it.
Yeah, the ending just leaves a really bittersweet, like you said, ending because it feeds you information that I feel like only fans are aware about. But if you know what occurs with that information, then you'll feel more heavy-hearted, but yet enlightened by it.
Yeah.
It's such powerful imagery. Like it's sometimes only a conversation between two people, and Vince Gilligan can make it the most heartwarming scene in the entire show.
So yeah, El Camino, we both recommend it.
I recommend that. Yeah, I definitely give it a higher score than I did originally. But we had a good episode today. We had a good episode. And we talked about stuff from movies, Lighthouse, and then Camino. But next week, we're actually gonna, or when we next record, we're gonna have a special treat. We're gonna talk about Parasite.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I'm not talking. I won't be talking about Parasite. You get to talk about Parasite.
Well, the year's biggest release coming out in our next episode.
And Jojo Rabbit, right? You get to talk about Jojo Rabbit too.
I can. Oh yeah, I can. I just gotta plan it out like always.
Yeah. And I'll probably talk about Gemini Man.
You're fine, dude. But thank you so much for being a delightful host, and thank you to our fans again for following us on Minority Opinions Podcast.
So thanks for listening. Go subscribe and review us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify and Google Play Music and all the other major podcast networks. Tweet us at MinorityOPod. You can send us a letter at minorityopodcast@gmail.com. It's all lowercase letters. And that's all we have for you. Oh, follow Ricardo on Instagram at RickyRicardo _987. I can't remember. What is that?
Ricky_Ricardo 987.
There you go. I don't own his Instagram account. So, and yeah, that's all we have for you. And we will see you all next week
on Minority Opinions Podcast. And ta-ta for now.